Hey, Leka, thanks so much for being on the show. If you could please introduce yourself to our audience and provide a brief overview of your background leading up to right around the time you got into real estate.
Oh, right around the time that I got into real estate. Okay, so I was born and raised in India. I had the best, most cultural forward life in India. And then I moved here in 2006 and I basically worked in fashion merchandising strategy at Nordstrom Corporate. And I loved my job. I loved my team, but there was like this inner, like deep desire to do more. And that's kind of when I made the switch mid-career, midlife to real estate investing.
That's awesome. I know you love fashion, so I could totally that makes a lot of sense. Um, but no, I know that you mentioned you are from another country. My mom is also an immigrant, and so
Yeah.
I think it's so fascinating to like dive into the immigrant mindset. Can you describe some of the challenges? I think you said you came when you were in 2006, was it?
So I was like 24 years old.
Okay. And what were some challenges that you encountered transitioning from one country to another?
I think that's it was one of the most pivotal moments of my life. Just the culture switch, the culture swap. It wasn't a culture shock for me because I lived a pretty affluent life in India, but it's just like leaving my family behind, leaving my friends behind, leaving everything I knew behind, and moving to a country where, and I also I didn't move to the most easiest of cities. I moved to Seattle, Washington, and Seattle is not in any way fashion forward. So thank God for Nordstrom being headquartered here. And I didn't have a degree in STEM, so I couldn't do any tech. So those were some of my challenges, I would say. And then, of course, there's all the other challenges of understanding a new culture, a new way of living, in India, like we don't do our own laundry or dishes. Like, it's like stuff like
Mhm.
that, even coming here and like learning to think for yourself is a whole other ball game of independence.
Yeah, no, that's so fascinating. And I mean, I think we all have, immigrants especially have that hunger. I think you mentioned that before, where coming from another country, you kind of have a different drive, and it's not necessarily better. It's just kind of a unique motivation within you. Do you think you had that as well, coming from India?
Yeah, I did. Like I think there's something special about being a first gen immigrant.
Hmm.
You don't have any kind of support. You don't have much experience in a new country. And so I think all of those actually give you an edge. Like you have to come with it, like with a lot of hunger and a lot of grit and a lot of hustle
Yeah.
that, because you're not born and raised here. And so that's like a whole new way of thinking or focus. So I think, yeah, as a first gen immigrant, like you're born with that fire to succeed
Yeah,
and to
absolutely.
find a path.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned you came and you were pursuing a career in fashion. And I mean, that doesn't seem very, I guess like the design stuff is similar to flipping
Yes,
houses and designing houses, but it doesn't seem directly correlated with, with real estate. So how did you kind of end up falling into real estate?
completely by accident. I was driving to work one day and I heard a real estate like ad for a company that was coming, like an education company that was coming to my city to teach about real estate investing. And I was like, okay, what does that even mean? And so I went in and I did like a 30-minute, like on my lunch break, the 30-minute presentation with them. And then they, of course, hooked me on to doing like a 3-day one. And then ended up joining their like mastery program. Best decision of my life. It helped me honestly have the confidence to quit my job and jump into something that I had no experience or background in because they were providing those tools and that education.
Yeah, we are big advocates in investing in yourself and education. That's something that's been one of the biggest expenses for us, but we see it as an investment. So that's awesome. I want to kind of dive into your first deal. And I know in the past, I think I might be mistaken, but I believe you lost money on that first deal that
Yes,
you did. I would love it if you could just kind of give us, because we learn more from, I believe we learn more from our things that don't go as
adversity.
planned. Exactly. So please walk us through what happened in that
Yeah.
experience.
So my first deal was a complete shot in the dark. I bought it sight unseen. I was told that the rehab budget was going to be 120 or 60K and ended up being 125. I had no experience finding contractors or hiring them or retaining them. So learned on the job every single day and ultimately resulted in a $5,000 loss. but it was the best loss, I would say, because I gained so much by way of experience and knowledge, and tools that I could use in my upcoming career.
Yeah.
So in a way, like I think that loss was a very good loss because it opened my eyes for everything that could go wrong, not just like a rosy real estate investing career. Like, yes, you can make mistakes. Yes, you can learn from them. And the only way to do it is to grow from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard savvy investors and some of the tycoons of the industry talk about how they've learned more from economic downturns and just the hardest times, and that's when they've learned the most than when things were going well. So that's awesome. I do want to talk about you're in Seattle, and that was what your first deal was, and that's where you currently invest. That's a well-known market. It's very competitive. I'd love to know how are you making it work, and how are you finding profitable opportunities there?
Because I've played in this market for so long that I know who to buy my deals from. I know I have a really solid crew and a team here that can do the work for me. And so I think those little things really go a long way. I'm also really good at underwriting deals in this market. There's a certain mentality that plays in this market. And the reason that I'm successful is I'm able to find those really distressed deals, even in a hot market. And I'm able to add like forced appreciation by a way of CapEx, massive renovations and takedowns. So it's not for everybody because it is an expensive market. So if something did happen down the road, like if interest rates, market situations change, then yes, you can be in a lot of hot oil if you don't know what you're doing and if you're not buying right. So it's just important that you understand your market and where you want to play and play the market right.
Yeah, and something you've always advocated and kind of emphasized the importance of for your journey has been networking. And we were wholesalers in the past, and so we always understood, the importance of finding like a good buyers list, people that were reliable. And it's interesting that you're kind of on the other end of that, where you're the buyer that would, you build a great network of wholesalers. So I'd love it if you could just walk us through the importance of networking. And I don't know if you've ever heard this, and I didn't actually understand the importance of networking as a single family investor. It wasn't until I got into the multifamily space that I learned, real estate's a team sport. And so I thought
Yeah.
it was a misconception that you could do single family, and you can do it alone, but it's so much more powerful if you have a great network. So can you just dive into how networking has changed your approach to single family investing?
Yeah, I'd have to go back to the very beginning. You actually started a direct mail campaign where I was marketing directly to sellers, and I really, really sucked at it because I did it for 6 months, and people would call me all the time off my letters, and I was so bad at following up. I was so bad at basically analyzing and putting my confident self in front of them to say, okay, this is why you should sell me your house for a deep discount. Like I was just not good at that. So as soon as I realized that, okay, what I'm good at is networking with like-minded people. So I started to find people that were good at direct mail, that were good at finding off-market opportunities that I could then network with, that were on the same wavelength as me. And so I started to network with wholesalers in my market. Then what I realized was these wholesalers literally found the best deals, and they would bring it to people that they liked. So I would, go out for coffee. I would be flexible. If I said I was going to buy a deal, I was going to buy a deal. I was going to close on it. And not just that, it's like once you buy the deal, how successful or not you are with that project is going to get you more deals in the future. So if you take a house and you completely bomb the flip, or you do a really bad job with the remodel, and then you're not able to sell it for a profit, or the buyers that buy your house come back and put a lawsuit on you, or like take legal action because of the work that you did was shoddy, then that wholesaler is never going to sell you another deal because ultimately it's also attached to them. And so, as I started to take on these deals and started doing a really good job with the remodels, the people in my network saw that. The brokers that brought me these off-market deals saw that I was able to deliver, and then brought me more and more and more. So at this point, I have done over 75 deals, and I want to say about 70 of them came from wholesalers, other brokers, people in my network. And I probably bought 5 off market as a broker myself. So that takes a lot of track record, and like solid confidence in your work. And so I would say, and then like just I started an in-person meetup. I have an online meetup, and then having all these meetups and going out into my market and advocating that I am a real estate investor. I'm here to buy, I'm here to stay. It just goes a long way. And your network is important because they can really make your career, find you the best deals, stabilize it the best for you,
Mhm.
find you amazing people to work with, be it contractors or escrow agents or transaction people or other brokers, like you build a reputation and then your network can take you really far.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember as a wholesaler, I keep going back to that, but we used to have cash buyers, and I think that stands out to me when you said you take them out to coffee and things like that, because no one ever offered. I don't think I might be forgetting one or two, but hardly
Really?
anyone really took us out. In fact, some of them tried to cut the wholesale fee that we were making, and so it's awesome that I'm sure you don't ever do that with your
I think like the most important thing is to take care of your people. So like when my wholesalers bring me something, even if it's $150,000 assignment fee, I'm like, you know what? If I can make money, then you should also make money.
Mhm.
And then I also give them list backs. So like, I'm like, okay, if when I'm done with my project, like you can sell it and make your commission. Although I'm a real estate broker myself, because I feel like if they are winning, then indirectly you're winning too.
100%. I completely agree. And that definitely helps you stand out because I know if I had had a buyer like you, that would have stood out and I would have taken every opportunity to you. So that's awesome.
Right. Right.
And you're the queen of adding value. I mean, you've gotten us on podcasts, you've made awesome connections with other people, and I think that I'm sure that has helped you reach the point you are at today, where you're just
Yeah.
emphasizing the importance of leading with value. I think in the past, I heard you mention how you were able to develop a relationship with a hard money lender, and that company that you helped kind of create, and now that's helping you as well grow your business. So I'd love it if you can just really quickly kind of dive into that
Yeah.
story and how that's helped you.
Yeah. So okay. So I met the two co-founders of Certain Lending in 2017. And basically they had this idea to build a hard money lending company to offer investors great products for lending. And that was something that I needed so badly in my life at that point that I was like, okay, if I can get them to succeed in my own little way, then it's a win-win situation for both of us. And so we conceptualized a pattern, a design. They basically asked me like what I needed in my business, and then they modeled their company to make sure that I was going to succeed. And then I started to use their financing options, and literally I haven't switched at all. That company has now it's a fintech company based out of San Francisco that has now grown into a massive company both in Seattle and San Francisco. And they lend in, I want to say, 48 states.
Wow.
And I have my own lending program with them called Loans by Leka. And I am so kicked because we can offer some killer lending solutions to people that are like you, that are like me, that are buying like cool investment properties, multifamily land, whatever it is. Like,
Mhm.
so it's just a really like humbling yet awesome moment for me because the company is so successful now, and to think that it was just a seed of an idea like not so long ago.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome to see, and I love that.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I would appreciate it if you could kind of provide some context because we touched on that first deal that you did, and I would love it if you could fill in the audience. What have you accomplished in the single family space specifically since then? So, from that first deal,
Yeah.
what were some of the deals you did after that?
Yeah, so I have done today about 50 single family flips. And mine are not just cosmetic flips, they're more down to the studs. So engineering, structural work, all new design, redesign, all of that. So very large remodels. My average price point for a remodel is anywhere between 150 to 250K, which in most areas is the acquisition price of a home. So it's very large remodels. So I've done those. I own a pretty nice rental portfolio here in Seattle, which consists of all single family, multifamily, and commercial buildings. And then as a real estate broker, which, I just became a broker for fun, so I could go in and out of my own homes. But as a real estate broker, I've sold about $35 million of real estate now in the last like 3 or 4 years, which I don't even advertise myself as a broker. So it's really nice that my friends and fellow investors like trust me to sell their properties. So yeah, that's kind of, I
Yeah.
think, what I've done.
Yeah.
And then I've done some other crazy projects that have been, a byproduct of my single family investing.
Yeah, and that just speaks to the power of your network. Like you're not even marketing yourself as a broker, but you've been able to do so much that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I know that you've mentioned in the past you have passive investors, and I believe it's some of your flips. But I think that's really fascinating because for as long as I've known, I mean, I knew one flipper that had passive investors and like JV partners. But
Yeah.
for me, passive investing is typically on the multifamily apartment syndication side of things. So can you kind of just explain how you're involving passive investors in some of your smaller projects and how that's structured?
Yeah. So basically with any of my projects, right? My average price point for a flip is $1 million in my market. And so if I want to scale, the only way to scale that is by using other people's money, by
Mhm.
using gap financing, by using bridge lending. And so oftentimes people come up to me and say, hey, we really want to learn how to flip a house. And so I bring them on as my financial partner because I can't just like give them a profit. Like they have to be able to add value. And so they come in with that bridge financing, and then they see how I'm able to acquire the property, how I fix it up, and then how I go through the cycle of selling the property. And through that, they gain so much knowledge, but at the same time, their money is working for them because at the end of the project, they get a nice little profit from my flip.
Yeah.
So that's the way I structure my single family side. My multifamily is, I syndicate multifamily. And so they're able to come in as an LP on my deal where, all they do is they put in the money and then they get monthly updates on how the project's going, like how we acquired it, what's going on with our tenants, our CapEx, cash flows, property management, all of that stuff. So
That's awesome.
that's kind of, yeah, what we do.
I love that. And so for anyone in our audience who maybe is starting out and doesn't know where to access the money, whether it's hard money or finding an investor, the kind of like you've met along your journey, what advice do you have for somebody who might say, I don't have the money, but I might be able to leverage other people's money?
Add value to people and then see how the money will follow, right? So before you go out and say, okay, hey, I don't have the money, or like, all I'm looking for is a lending partner, like, why don't you add value and say, okay, I'm actually going to work really hard to find a deal, a killer deal. And to do that, I'm going to underwrite a ton of properties. I'm going to walk a ton of properties. And so I know my market. I know the deals that I should buy. I know the numbers that I should be looking for, and then understand the construction process, get together with contractors, like, so the minute you find a project, it's not that your lending partner should provide your contractor, but you already have a crew. So if you can set yourself up, you don't need the money. The money is the easy part. The money will follow the deal. A lot of people have told me, like, even in large, like self-storage and large multifamily, that the money will show up as long as you have a good deal. Good deals are harder to find in this climate
Hmm.
than money is.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And so I actually wanted to ask, it's a fun question, and I think I'm confident you'll be able to have a great answer for it.
Okay.
Can feel free to kind of be flexible with the money. I just wanted to think of what most people maybe in their pocket might have. So, for example, if you were starting out brand new and you had $100 and you were dropped in a random market, where would you start if you wanted to succeed in real estate, specifically maybe being a flipper or in the single family space, or even maybe multifamily? You can kind of take liberty with that.
Okay, I would, I think, start in my own backyard because I don't know any other market. Like, especially if I'm new to investing, I probably don't know any other market better than my own market. Because if I do have an inclination for real estate, that
Hmm.
probably means that I've had some amount of experience just understanding my own market. So that's where I would start. I would use that $100 to take as many people to coffee as possible and get as much insight into that market as possible. So then they can put me in touch with other people that either have the money, the
Hmm.
deals, whatever it is, but give me a full, like, understanding of the life cycle of a deal. So yeah,
Yeah,
and
no,
that's
that's awesome.
honestly, that is literally what I did. Is I took the little money I had and I spent it on my network.
Yeah, we've done that so much. A lot of the money profits that we've made from our real estate deals, we've invested in conferences, education, mastermind programs,
Love
meeting
that.
people, and I think your network will have an infinite return on investment, and it's proven to have that. So that's amazing.
Exactly right.
you, of course, you mentioned you started flipping, and I think we started wholesaling in a similar way. That's very transactional,
Yeah.
and so you're not holding properties long term. I know that at some point on your journey, you did kind of understand the importance of holding these properties long term to build
Yeah.
wealth. Can you kind of dive into at what point in your journey you realized that, and how you're approaching real estate differently? Are you holding more properties as a result of that realization, and kind of dive into that?
First of all, Kervin, I got to commend you because you've done a lot of research on me. And it's just all these questions are
Is it
so
creepy?
and so important for people to understand. And you've taken the time to understand that. So thank you for that.
I hope I didn't
Um,
creep you out.
Not at all. No,
No,
this
I'm
is
kidding.
amazing. Every host needs to be this way. Like I'm this way when I interview people. Like I just die. Like I go and find all these like nuggets and videos on people and like really try to understand who this person is so
Mhm.
that I can add most value to my audience. So kudos on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it,
Um,
Leka.
okay, so yes, I started flipping homes in 2014. Until 2017, I did not understand the importance of holding rental properties. So all I did was take the money I was flipping and then go buy more properties and flip more properties and take the money I was flipping and put it all back in the business. Then I met one of the most amazing people in real estate, Thatch Wen. And Thatch and I had the opportunity to go have lunch. And so when I had lunch with Thatch, he looked at my business and he analyzed it from an exterior perspective. And he said, the one thing that you're doing wrong, because you have all these great qualities, the one thing that you're doing wrong is you're not building passive income at all. So tomorrow, if you got hit by a bus, all the money you have is the money that is in your active deals, right? There's nothing passive about it. Like if you're not going to work every day, you're not making money. And that was like a big light bulb that went off in my head because I'm like, oh my God, he's so right. Right. And so that's when I started to focus on building my passive portfolio. And the only market I knew was the Seattle market. And I didn't know it was going to be such a hot market, but I started to buy rentals. I started investing in properties that I knew best, which was single family. And so I bought like a rental here, a rental there, and then started amassing this rental portfolio. And soon it just grew to many more units. And I was able to do some land subdivisions. I was able to do some additions, hold land from properties that I'd sold. Um, and so that kind of made it a super healthy, passive way to make money for me.
Hmm. That's awesome. And so I know a lot of people. I mean, I was in single family for about a year, but we went to a lot of networking events, and we met a lot of flippers and single family, just property owners, maybe had rentals. But a lot of them, their end goal is to move into the multifamily space, larger real estate, that side of things. And you were
Yeah.
able to do that. And I know you are involved in, I believe it was your first syndication,
Yeah.
not that long ago. I'd love it if you could dive into how you came about, getting that first syndication deal done, and how it went and how it is going, I guess, right now.
Yeah, that was another great switch in my career is I just kept focusing on single family and then 2 to 4 unit multifamily. Never in a million years thought I was going to syndicate an apartment or buy an apartment building. But that's again the power of networking. I became really active on LinkedIn a couple of years ago. And everybody on LinkedIn was somehow focused on multifamily syndications. And then I started to learn about it. I started to read about it. I started to educate myself on multifamily syndications. And then I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing because there's a lot of value I can add and grow my portfolio much quicker by doing this. And so and then in also doing the meetups and everything, like I started to grow a following, and my following was basically like, hey, how do we invest in your deals? So again, it comes back to raising other people's money. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, the best way to do that is to syndicate a larger project rather than doing 1 or 2 projects and having one lender on each project. I could have 20, 30 lenders on one project and add value to them and also add value to myself. And then I just started to manifest to the universe that I wanted to syndicate apartment buildings. And literally my asset manager, who I didn't know at all back then, who I'd worked with barely, called me and said, hey, I'm looking to work with someone, like would you be interested? And I was like, yes, because he's like the perfect, like he has set up so many syndications that he was a perfect partner to you know travel with me along this journey. And then a 23-year-old underwriter, like he works at Facebook, was like, I would love to work with you. And so then we started to work together. And soon we became this amazing team, and we each had different opportunities and different strengths and different weaknesses that we complemented each other so well. And then we ended up finding our first deal off market, killer deal. I think we're going to crush it on this one. We found it off market. We are able to buy it, find a great project property manager, and we're off to the races.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, that's literally how I set up my first syndication. Anyone can do it if I can.
That's amazing. I love that. And I do want to backtrack a little because there are some awesome deals that you've done along your journey that I do want to kind of highlight and get into the deep trenches of it and just to dissect it. So you can honestly choose. Which one do you think would be more insightful? The 7-figure flip or the one that you did in Shoreline, Washington that you added that third unit? I think you converted the garage.
Yeah, let's talk about the one that I did, the third unit, the addition, because I don't talk about it as much as I do my 7-figure flip. Okay, so I bought this house. It was called, when I bought it, it was an adult family home, and I had no clue what an adult family home was. So I ended up buying it. It just looked really bizarre. Like it had an entrance up top, it had an entrance at the bottom. And all I knew was single family flip. So I flipped the house and I made it stunning. And, I made it beautiful on the outside, completely gutted the inside, added a new staircase, added bedrooms, bathrooms, just made it stunning. And then what happened was I was about to sell it. I put it on the market, and then my stager that walked the house was like, hey, why don't you keep this and convert it into an adult family home? And I was like, what is that? Right. So that's when I started researching adult family home, assisted living facilities. And I was like, oh my God, there's a huge need for this in the market. And so I started the process of we had a garage, we had a 1-car garage. So I was like, okay, why don't we take out the garage and add an addition? So the house was already 3,400 square feet. So what we did was ended up adding a 1,200 square foot addition to the 3,400 square foot home. And ultimately, like when we bought the house, it was a 4-bed and 2-bath house. Today, it's a 10-bed, 6-bath, 3-kitchen house. So it's like a triplex. Sadly, the adult family home route didn't work because I was just not able to find a good provider to take this on. But at the same time, it works great now because we have 3 separate tenants, and we were able to add density in an area that really needed it and provide 3 amazing rental units. So it ended up being a really lucrative property because all in all, I think we were into it for about $995K. Today, the property will appraise at 1.8, and we cash flow about 3 or 4 grand a month. That's after the rent pays off my principal and interest.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy that you shared that because even though it didn't really go as planned initially, in the past you mentioned that there's no roadmap to real estate, and my brothers and I, we always say that to each other. We're like, there's no one way. Even if I wanted to copy someone else's path, that's impossible. And it's a good thing and a bad thing because it can also be very daunting. You're like walking around in a dark room and you just got to figure it out as you go. Can you kind of speak to that? Maybe understanding that there is no path, but kind of finding like the beauty in that and embracing that.
Yeah. It's really what you put into this that you get out of it. So at any given point, even just my Shoreline remodel, right? Like at any given point, I could have thrown my hands up in the air and said, okay, I'm going to make a bunch of money on this remodel. Let me just walk away. But I'd be making a profit. I wouldn't be building wealth. So it's like, how can you take something and put as much work as you can into it to ultimately get you this amazing product that you can keep for generations, right, in your family or as a wealth building tool. And you're absolutely right. Like 10 other people could have taken the Shoreline project and done 10 different things with it, right? Not any of those I could emulate. So ultimately, it's about, okay, what is it that I am good at? Where is my confidence level in something? And how can I build this roadmap for myself? Because you're right, people can tell you that, hey, you can take a project, you can fix it up, and then you can sell it for a profit. But all the little pieces that go into it is something that you have to figure out for yourself. is something that you have to execute. You have to find the right people. You have to find the right tools. So you can educate yourself by going to conferences, meeting people, learning from people's experiences, and really like understanding all the different things that is possible, and then taking that and using it to your advantage to then create your own map.
Yeah. No, you're very wise, and I appreciate you sharing that. And to kind of just continue to provide some more wisdom, I'd love it to know. And I understood you started out as a flipper, so it's my understanding that flippers are in a very high income tax bracket, so they're taxed heavily. Correct? Am I right on that? Okay.
Oh yeah.
And also, so that's where we'll start there. What advice do you have for a flipper who maybe is highly taxed? What would you say to them if they don't want to continue to be paying these high taxes? And I know you're
Go
not
start.
a CPA.
I know. Start building your rental portfolio. Take use of this amazing like tax advantages that you can take as a full-time real estate employee. So go do like larger buildings that allows you to take bonus depreciation. Use tax strategies like 1031 exchanges, which I've done very often in the past. Like I've taken a project, 1031 that into a much larger building. And basically, that pays for my down payment on the building.
Yeah.
So while I can own a single family home or a townhome, that asset could actually be sold and I can buy a fourplex or a 10plex that's appreciating at a much higher factor. And I can take like bonus depreciation on. And you can't combine the two, but I'm saying that you can use so many different tax strategies to kind of offset your income, because where I'm at in Seattle, I am taxed pretty heavily. And because so much of my income is ordinary income and short-term capital gains, it's brutal how much money I pay in taxes. So you just have to find other ways to kind of compensate for that.
No, I appreciate that. And to kind of go along, I mean, the headlines lately, people are wondering if there's going to be a recession happening, and the crash that's coming. How are you as a flipper specifically preparing yourself and kind of mitigating the potential risk if that happens? Because I do know a big part of making a profit on a flip is kind of hoping that it'll be worth more in the future, right?
Yeah. That's why you need to know your market so well. You need to know what your inventory levels are, because yes, interest rates are going up, but if your market is so starved for inventory, like we have, I think 4 weeks of supply as of today. And that's nothing, because we have so many buyers in the market still looking for homes, right? So even if interest rates are going up, they may not fall in that bracket, but there's other people that fall into that bracket that are still looking for beautiful homes to move into, and there's nothing to buy. So always look at, yes, there's something going on with the market, but at the core of it, is there enough inventory for your buyers when you do put out that flip on the market or that beautiful apartment building that you've just finished renovating, right? So if you're able to add some kind of value in a market that is starving for it, then you're still going to be okay. And buy right. It's okay if you have to take a step back, watch kind of how the market is going and what direction, and then jump back into it. But buy right so that you're not overpaying for stuff, and you're still like, if the market is here and you're still buying over here, even if that market falls a little bit, you still have that room to grow, and the room to make that profit and not make a loss. So buy right.
That's great advice. Ken McElroy, he talks about how even if so I think it's even if the entire nation goes into a recession, it's real estate is really local. So it really depends on the specific market. And that's what he says. It's all about location and like that specific market, because what happens in New York is not going to be the same as what happens in North Carolina, and they're going to be impacted differently. So I'm really happy that you clarified that. Now, to kind of fast forward to the present, I would love to know, I know that you've scaled your awesome flipping business to a point where you can focus on other ventures and kind of, just be in multiple places at once. Can you just touch on how you've been able to do that? Because it's my understanding, and maybe a misconception for a lot of people, that flipping is a very, like, you have to be involved in the trenches all the time. And is that the case?
Honestly, no, because last year I did 3 massive flips and I barely went, like I was traveling, I want to say 5 out of the last 12 months. And so like, I barely even went to my projects. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't design them. It doesn't mean that I don't pick out all the features, the trim, the tile. I still do all of that, and I can do that remotely, which is the beauty of, having a Zoom or telecommunication and buying online and buying off of websites like Amazon and all these other online marketplaces. But what's cool is that I'm able to run my business from anywhere because of all the systems and the foundations that I put in place. Um, I still see amazing flips that I'm saying no to. So there's no dearth of good projects.
Hmm.
I have an incredible team that I keep happy so that they keep doing amazing work for me. I have a great transaction team that lists my properties, or if I do have listings of my own, then I have a transaction coordination team that takes care of all the paperwork, So it's like, how do you put these building blocks in play so that you can go out and
Yeah.
actually play?
Yeah. No,
Uh,
absolutely.
you can go out and network and go to all these amazing conferences or take some time off and travel the world and like still live this incredible life, which you can't do unless you have good systems in place.
Yeah. And how long can you just briefly kind of explain how many years have you been in it since this year?
I've been in this, honestly, I think this is April 20. Oh my God, it's been
Not to
eight
age you.
years, 8 years to today.
That's awesome. Anniversary. I love it. I
I
love it. That's
know.
not a coincidence. That's amazing.
It's not a coincidence. I started on April 26th in 2014.
Nice. I just wanted to ask because I don't want people to think like you didn't have the hardships and the challenges because I know
Oh my God.
it took a long time for you to reach this point and a lot of hardship, obstacles, ups and downs. So that's awesome. It's very commendable. And I've seen you posting on Instagram while you're traveling. You're living your best life. I love it. It's very inspirational. My brothers and I are aiming to travel in that way. So you're inspiring not just us, but a lot of people, I'm sure, in your audience as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's it I try to post about the hardships too because there's a lot of it. There's
Yeah.
more hard than there is good. And so, I'm much more like even keel about
Mhm.
my business now because there's every good that comes along is followed by three bads that I have to put out like all these fires. So it's not by any means an easy business to be in.
Mhm.
A lot depends on you and how you're able to move that needle forward no matter the circumstance. So I would say like, yes, this is a business that is not for the faint hearted. This is something that requires a lot of discipline and grit and great mental stability. And so like, if you are someone that can withstand all that, then this is absolutely the place for you to be in.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also just kind of to touch on that Instagram thing. I saw a reel that you posted about you're getting commercial tenants. I think it's your first
Yeah.
commercial tenants. Can you just touch on that? I'd love to know for personal reasons too. I'm curious. What's up
Yeah.
with that? What's going on with that?
Okay, so I 1031 my seven-figure flip into a commercial office building last year. So bang in the middle of COVID, I
Nice.
bought a vacant office building. Like go figure,
That's
right?
such a that's such a power move, honestly.
I was like obsessed with the location. I was like, I want to own here. And then so I ended up like buying this amazing building and it's right next to Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. So I was like, I just need to own this building. And then it, of course, hasn't been easy. It's been very, very challenging to get the work done, to, renovate this monstrous, it's a 7,007
Wow.
200 square foot building. And it's just a monstrous building. It's 7 units. And it's cool because I'm finally like the flooring's done and I'm at the finish line to get this property finished and rented out. And we signed our first lease with our commercial tenant this week. So very
That's
exciting
exciting.
stuff. Yeah. And this tenant it's
Yeah.
like amazing because this tenant is a property manager and he's going to help property manage the building from within.
Yeah, so many people are terrified about offices, and they were very pessimistic about them. I've heard one of the narratives out there is that retail or not retail that industry is dead. Offices are dead.
Yeah.
Can you explain maybe how you justified it and what opportunity and potential you see in that property?
Yeah. So my office building is going to be so much cheaper to rent out on a very, very expensive street. So it's one of the coolest streets in Seattle. It's got a lot going for it. And typically office spaces to rent over there are between $40 to $80 a square foot, and I'm going to be at like 35. So I think that's my niche is
Mhm.
I'm still going to provide this amazing building with great features and great amenities, showers, kitchen bars, all these cool things, but it's not as expensive to rent and you're on the coolest street. So
That's
I
awesome.
think if you can add some kind of a value, point to your building, like you can succeed in anything, right? Like you can succeed in one of the worst markets to be in as long as there's value in what you're providing. That's kind of what I did. Like the other tenants that we're talking to now are like artists and mortgage brokers and people that just need like simple small office spaces. And that's the cool thing about this building is it's varied in office spaces. Not every space is the same. So they're anywhere from 300 square feet all the way to 2,500 square feet. So it just depends on like who you are.
Yeah,
So it'll
that's
be cool.
exciting. I appreciate that's a gold nugget. So that's I'm really happy you shared that, and I think that speaks to the importance of where you are in the market as well, and just market because what might work in some place might not work in
Might
another.
not work. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That's awesome. Now that we're about the time to enter our speed round, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. All
Born
right.
ready.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. First question: what has been the biggest failure, or what I like to call learning lesson, that you've encountered along your real estate journey, and what did you take away from that experience?
The biggest failure I would say is not holding my properties from the get-go. Everything that I sold when I first started investing and started remodeling is now worth like 4 times its value than what I sold it for. And so I think that's my biggest takeaway is like if you can hold something, then buy it in the mindset of being able to hold it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so what is your long-term vision for your business, and what are you aiming to accomplish moving forward?
I want to get to about 50 units for passive income, and then also focus on just doing large apartment syndications.
That's
So
awesome.
50 units for myself, but also focus on apartments.
What is your why?
My kids, they're 9 and 5, and I think more than providing them with financial freedom, I think providing them with like a work ethic on how if you put your mind to it, then you can do anything. It's kind of like your mom too, because I know your guys' story, and so I know this. Like I think your mom inculcated a really good work ethic, and look at the three of you now. Same thing with me and my kids is like I'm like, okay, if you work hard, it doesn't matter what field you're in, it doesn't matter what your goals are, you're going to achieve them because you
Mhm.
just have that true grit and hustle to get there.
Absolutely. You shared a ton of wisdom today. I really appreciate it. If there was one piece of advice or wisdom you'd want someone to walk away with from today's episode, what would that be?
Take that first step. It's not important what your decision is. It is important to decide to do it. And so I think it really helps in just saying, okay, I've got this. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to focus on what is going to find me true financial and amazing freedom. Um, and I'm going to build this and just going forward and doing it, taking that first step. That's
I love
important.
I love that. Thank you. If anyone in our audience wants to learn more about you or follow you on your journey, where can they go to do that?
I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, and my handle is Leka Devatha. And you can follow me in any of those platforms. You can also go to my website, rehabithomes.com, and you can find me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Leka. It was a pleasure speaking with you. I had a lot of fun, and I know my audience is going to get a ton of value out of today's episode.
Thank you for having me, Kervin.
Absolutely. Thank you.